Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to this very special edition of the JADS Expert Talks. And it is special because we discuss the progress of JADS over the past 5 years, of course, with an outlook into the future. As we always do this, we have a number of guests. I will be introducing the persons later. You are seeing them sitting around the table. So we hope that you will have a good time, and we will see to it that we at least will have one. So let's move to a small set of courtesy rules. Well, you know them, of course. We are working with these already since Corona is with us. Corona has left us, but we still are using these rules. And what is important is that this is being recorded with you as a live audience today. We decided to put the research units that we have at JADS in the center of the activities. So we start today with the unit of Willem-Jan van den Heuvel. We will be discussing with Willem-Jan the progress. There is a roadmap, a number of guests at different aspects of the activities that are taking on it. So there is a lot to be proud about in this respect. And so let us quickly then see what that simply means in terms of content. So Willem-Jan, thank you very much. Happy anyone wants to see an introduction, because you are, of course, a few secrets. So Willem-Jan, could you share with us some of your past experience? And let me start with the question, what was the first encounter you had at JADS?
That's a very interesting question, Emil, and thanks for inviting us as a data engineering unit here today. And I'm very happy and proud, in fact, to represent the entire unit here today, because this is not about me or myself or my colleague Gemma, unit, in fact. So one of the first things that comes into my mind is when we really just started, and when still it was the time that the nuns of JMJ, they were here, and that's a memory which I have, which is still connected to me. But of course, also the opening is something.
But what was so very special about this?
I mean,
was it the first time in your life you saw a nun?
No, it was not the first time in my life I saw a nun. In fact, my aunt was a nun. No, it wasn't. But the fact that the universities reached out to this special place, Den Bosch, where there wasn't a university, where we were given the opportunity, in fact, to build up something from scratch with a new mission, not a religious one, but a scientific, the way in which we were received, in fact, by, let's say, the order of JMJ. This was also very special. So these were very special times for us, which I will remember for my entire life.
Yes, it indeed was very special. It's very good of you to bring this up, because one of the reasons that we sort of were allowed to, in a way, take over or take presence of this building was because the nuns had the impression, or they lived under the impression, that their good work on education was being continued, not by virtue of, let's say, educating girls from families at that point in time to serve for other families, contemporary type of education, which brings us to the data science, of course. They didn't have a simple idea what it was, but we did. And so we are here. So you are a professor in distributed enterprise computing. Maybe to one or two persons in the audience who don't know what distributed enterprise computing is, what is your chair? What do you study?
In a nutshell, it's all about, I guess, trying to integrate computing resources that can be highly distributed. It can be located at various geographical places, for example, and trying to integrate and reconcile the data And in fact, this is something on which I've been concentrating over the past 5 years, and to do it in such a way that it can be used by fellow scientists, more the data scientists, in order to, I guess, find patterns, for example, and to, let's say, extract the real value out of it. So in fact, I'm very much interested, believe it or not, in this very low-level plumbing of bringing together data sources that can be, let's say, again, geographically dispersed.
Yep, I can imagine. But this is interesting to students.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is very interesting to students because engineering discipline, without this ability, not only to integrate the data, but also to, let's say, have high performance computing facilities in place, it's impossible to do anything.
Yes.
Also with the data science, right? So we see ourselves as data science exercise is that we apply data science methods like machine learning, deep learning ourselves in order to lever all types of data engineering and distributed software engineering practices.
Yes, that figures. I know that you have prepared a story for us, a story along with some slides to tell us what your unit is about and what your ideas are for the future. Could you please share that presentation with us and tell us what makes your unit tick?
Yeah, of course. So thank you very much. So indeed, what we have done for today, and this is something which I've done in tandem with my colleague opposite to me, Gemma, because she will follow up later on what I will start. So we have prepared a short story to you in order to explain a little bit about what our unit is all about, and to give you a little bit more of insights of what we have been doing over the past few years, but also what we think what the key challenges will be for the upcoming 5 years to go. So, and indeed, if we look at JADS, there is 2 other research units who are equal, I guess, in size and also of importance, I would argue. So next to data engineering and governance, we also have the colleagues in data analytics and entrepreneurship. And although on this slide, you may get the impression these are siloed groups, we work increasingly together. So it will be people from data engineering working with guys from deep learning, for example, and then working again with the people from the data entrepreneurship group who have a much better understanding on how not only to extract, let's say, value from the data, but also to exploit it in a commercial or in a socially engaged manner. So, and indeed, I'm leading the data engineering and governance group, and I'm doing this in very close collaboration with my colleague, and it's Damien Tambouri. So, but what does it mean? I mean, what does it, in a data science institute, one may wonder, because this is not something which is very logical. I mean, when we just started with the data science initiative, we have had a lot of discussions what data science really entailed. So we have had discussions from people from economics, for example, from law schools, with a background in sociology, computer scientists, mathematicians. And as you can envision, we all had, I guess, different perspectives of the field of data science and what it would entail. Now, and I can also vividly remember, because this is a day when we look a little bit back and we look forward at the same time, but I can vividly remember some active discussions in the first few years when setting up the educational programs and the research programs alike, meetings, for example, in Campus. And there we also had I guess, sometimes the struggles even like, how can we shape this program? And we have been looking at international programs and international research at the same time. And what we figured, we wanted to be special, and we wanted to be special in the sense that we didn't want to do plain data science, not that this is not worthwhile, it definitely is. But we wanted to look at, indeed, this extraction of value, whatever this value notion is. And there's still huge debate on in fact, how you can, I guess, measure this value and how you could define the value. So, at the end of the day, what we envisioned is that, indeed, you cannot only have people with a background in modeling, for example, or machine learning per se. So you cannot only have people with statistics or a modeling type of background, but in order to be entrepreneurial, you need to be able to build stuff, okay? So you need to be able to build the models that you've mined from huge amounts of data. And you need to be able, I guess, also at the same time, of building a product, you need to be able to integrate the data. That's the fact that I've just mentioned. So we envisioned that, especially at the beginning of a data science trajectory, at the data science life cycle, if you wish, you need data engineers who are able to find data that can reconcile and integrate the data and make it available. And this is an exceedingly difficult task in days when data is not only longer structured in nature. So when I started my studies, was in the 90s, most of the data was structured, in fact, and very stationary. So these days with unstructured data and data coming to us at increasingly speeds in various directions. So this is in the huge change. Now, in fact, the data scientists, the data modelers, they come into play and they do, let's say, their trick. They look at normal data science trajectories. About 80% of the time, and maybe even more of the costs, are in fact in this, I guess, data engineering exercise. And this is in fact also a reason that a lot of projects still fail. So we wanted indeed to raise a scientist that's also equipped with data modelers are done, be able to make a product out of it. So to, let's say, to program stuff, but in such a way it's scalable. For example, it's secure, it's deployable in multi-cloud environments, right? So in these days, which are heterogeneous, I guess, in nature, with all types of different platforms, all types of different tools, an extremely intricate and complicated task. But nevertheless, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you need to be able at least to have some knowledge on how to do it. And this is how we came to this, I guess, at first sight, strange constellation of raising these new entrepreneurs on the block that in the more traditional data science methods and techniques, but also likewise in data engineering and the entrepreneurship angle, in fact, which again is equally. And if you look at the skill set of a typical data slide, as you can see, at the left-hand side, you have the data scientist. At the right-hand side, at the end of the day, is these overlapping skills. So they revolve around analysis, programming, and indeed about dealing with the big, for example, computing facilities. And in these days, we are interested in the impact that quantum computing will have field data science and artificial intelligence, because these days at the same time and on society at large. Not one. I hope the audience at home has an idea of the which we have perceived. Let's say the old-fashioned database administrators, but these are technology. So what are we interested in? And this is, let's say, the global denominator of what our group tries to do and will over the coming few years. We are increasing entering the area of decentralization. So, and we are there interested, for example, in computing at the edge, computing in the cloud continuum, from the cloud, the central cloud, I guess, also looking at computing sites. So how can we enact software services which are data intensive, so which consume and or produce usually enact them and let them execute in very fast. Again, this in a very heterogeneous. We are looking at these application domains. We have just mentioned a couple of the devise, these complex planning services. Again, this in a very heterogeneous environment. And we are looking at various application domains. And we have just mentioned a couple, for example, how to devise these complex planning services in smart networked manufacturing, for example, emergency services, long-running business transactions, self-driving cars. So as you can see, the applications are myriad. And this is in fact also what we are doing as a team. In principle, we are focusing on a couple of domains, but in principle, the technology we devise has a very broad, I guess, impact. Now, so once you have these services, though, you need to think next. What's the next step? And these pills over here on this slide, they represent the individual discrete services that you have developed before you get anything else in your mind. So envision yourself that you are on holidays. And in fact, I borrowed this metaphor from one of my students. It's Stefan Driessen, who presented this slide, in fact. Daimler, Mercedes-Benz last week. It's a very nice metaphor. So the individual pills are all types of services. And I've just mentioned a couple of examples of these services already to you, and they have all types of sizes, all types of colors, all types of functionalities, if you wish. Now, imagine yourself that you have sometimes problems with headaches. This also happens to me. So I have to go to the shop, I go to the pharmacy, and I buy some pills. And this is not a problem in the Netherlands, but when I go to Japan or China, I suddenly do have a problem. So if then at the end of the day, I would only have these services, which one would I choose? How can I do it? So it's very clear that these services per se, these pills are worthless unless I have it packaged. And I know it's from, for example, Pfizer. So I have some trust in it. I have trust that these services might in fact be performing well and they are well tested at the end of the day. I need instructions. So next to these, to the pills, the core, let's say, services themselves, I need instructions on how to use them, when to use them, with which other services, aka pills, I can combine them. So what we see is that these pills, they need packages, and the same is true for data and for services. So we see the uprise of something which is called data products, which is a new notion, which is also very much touted, advertised by upcoming, very much decentralized data infrastructures like Gaia-X. And this is for us a very important, I guess, a point of attention, a point for research and education for the coming time. And again, bear in mind, we do this not only from an engineering perspective, but we try to embrace a social technical perspective as well. For example, studying the optimal composition of development teams in terms of various personalities, various backgrounds, various cultures. So we are also doing research, in fact, on that. And then you can't only limit yourself to the pure technical capabilities of the people, but you need to take into account also soft skills, soft factors, like the cultural ones and other ones, in fact, indeed. Just to give you an idea of what we are doing. We have people in the group looking at the packaging. We have people in the group looking at how to produce these pills, for example, and how to scale up or scale down elastically. We also have people, in fact, at the end of the day in our group who look at various application areas in order to test drive, I guess, these concepts that we develop. So, and this brings us to the next slide, where we see that we are gradually moving towards something which is called data thinking. So we are, let's say, in our discipline, moving toward a amalgamation of various types of already existing methods in order that you can use to use big problems, right? So very complex problems, which are very hard to attack and address. So we're using, for example, design thinking for this purpose. In order to I guess, apply design thinking successfully to build data products, you need to have a balancing act. So you need to be a data acrobat, if you wish, that needs to balance between user needs, business needs, and the data attributes which are in place. And in order to know what these attributes are, you need to be able to measure it. And that's again something which is very interesting for us, for example, in terms of quality of data. Now, without me wanting to start a lecture, because this is definitely not what we want for today. So let's move a bit more into the data engineering unit. So we are a happy marriage, one could say, a happy marriage between classical software engineering and artificial intelligence and data science, at least what we try to do. Not saying we always succeed, to be very honest, but we're trying. And what we aim to do is provide these data entrepreneurs with a toolbox, which will help them to actually build the models that they have devised, package them, deploy them, and deliver them, and make stuff which is readily usable on the market, on data markets. And again, we do this from multiple perspectives. So who is behind this data engineering unit? And I wanted to show some faces to you. You will see now two faces around the table, but it's all of us who deliver the job, right? So and you have people here. Maybe it takes so much time to mention all of them, and maybe Gemma will delve a bit deeper into them. But we have a couple of PhD students walking around. Already mentioned Stefan Dries, for example. He's at the bottom right, the second person with the blonde hair. We have Nemanja sitting at let's say the bottom right, and I could go on and on. So, but it's at the end of the day, the entire team. And what I think makes, and I hope the heart makes it tick. I think it does, at least sometimes looking at the smiling faces. I'm very happy to see them back here in person at JADS, because for me, that does make a huge difference. But what we try to do is look at real world significant problems. So for us, impact goes beyond writing papers. It's extremely important, but we also want to work on something which is relevant. So we want to mix relevance and rigor. So we don't only want to have rigor in the models, it needs to have relevance as well. So these are the balancing act. And we want to apply it in various domains, for example, in crime and safety, in health. We're trying also to venture out a bit, especially after COVID, manufacturing, and also sustainable computing. But I guess Gemma will say a bit more about it. And also, in fact, one of the intentions we have is what we would like to do is, at the one hand side, work with a beautiful community here at JADS, but we don't want to be limited. So in fact, what we want to do for the coming 5 years is reach out across the academic borders of JADS and set up also collaborations with European hubs. This fits also very nicely in the European research agenda, and establish some kind of a virtual, let's say, institute revolving around data engineering and data governance at the European level, through strong partnerships with knowledge institutions and companies alike. So one of the distinguishing characteristics, I guess, of this group in comparison to some other groups I know is we have a lot of European projects. As you've just noted, also the group is very European, I would say, or international is better to say. And on this slide, it's not an eye test, by the way, but it's a couple of the Horizon 2020 projects. One of the more recent ones is React EU, which is a very cool project. It's European, but regional. So it's a project here with the municipality of Den Bosch and Breda. We're working there on a smart city monitor that we hope to use to make a healthier city after the COVID pandemic. And as you can see, there's quite some projects we have done ranging from the middleware level, like looking at very technical stuff like serverless computing, to more applied projects in crime, for example, Anita and Protect.
And what we can see, William, is that there is more. Maybe in view of time,
yes,
if you allow me.
Absolutely.
It's a really compelling story with a lot of ambition. A group who has a focus to the external world. So maybe just as a question to take you back to the original days of JADS, it goes back to 2014 when we were at the Capella Putte, as you mentioned. At that point in time, we were very much motivated and inspired by these developments worldwide. I think they date back already 10 years from now, where it was stated that data science would be the most compelling, and some people even call it the most sexiest job of the 21st century. So you are in the heart of educating these people. What is your opinion? Did this shift over time, or has it even become more important? And then if we turn to your unit, how do you live up to this promise?
Cool. Yes, it's very interesting but also difficult to answer questions, but I'll try to do my best, but only from my perspective. So I think indeed when we started, I mean, data science was pretty new. It was new for everyone, and that is even clear from the fact that we were having internal discussions about what it should be. So we were one of the first in the Netherlands, not being the first in the Netherlands to have programs. Which at least were a logical continuation from bachelor to the master and even higher up to the PDA, which was really a unique proposition.
Yes. And the entrepreneurship, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, that was also a distinguishing angle indeed that I cannot emphasize enough. Now, of course, what we have seen over the past few years is that we have seen, I think that every self-respecting university or vocational institute these days has a data science program. So that's a fact.
So how do we stay ahead?
I think the one way to stay ahead is being entrepreneurial ourselves and being innovative ourselves. And I guess, being people who self-invent or reinvent themselves, I would say, over and over again. Of course, one of the more recent developments is to be found in the uptake of AI. Also, we can see this in our group and in the research as well as in the education, but also these new technologies like quantum, which I think will be a breakthrough within now in 5 to 10 years maybe, but we will invest full-fledged on quantum, let's say computing, quantum machine learning, quantum services alike. And I think by trying to stay ahead with the developments, we hope to remain relevant, I guess, in the research, in the education, and as an institution as a whole, but also for the entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah. Let us check, Willem-Jan, how successful we have been in the past. So we have guests around the table who have been studying with us, and maybe let's give them the floor to elaborate a little bit on their past and future experience with us. So, ladies and gentlemen, the first person to introduce to you is Leonard Alberda. Leonard, welcome.
Hi.
You are a JADS Master alumnus. What is a JADS Master alumnus?
What is a JADS Master alumnus? Yeah, well, it basically means that I studied the master program here and studied data science and entrepreneurship. And yeah, as a follow-up of the story of Willem-Jan, where you have learned how to apply data science and data engineering in combination with entrepreneurship. So creating business out of the techniques you've been using. And yeah, now as an alumnus, I try to do that in practice. I try to do that in the corporate environment, and yeah, try to use these techniques in such a way that we can make data-driven choices, can make data-driven business. Yeah, I think that's it.
And looking back at your earlier choice, why did you choose for JADS? Because it was unknown at that point in time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So what was the compelling part of it?
Yeah. So I was already studying in Den Bosch. So
Yes.
I was familiar with the city and the people in here. I had a lot of people that I knew in the city. And I noticed that the city was at that moment in time quite hard marketing this new university that was in the city, because Den Bosch didn't have any university at all. Except for the applied sciences, of course, but the actual academic university wasn't present yet. They were very much marketing it, and it sounds very interesting that it combined this new field of data science, because it was pretty new at that time, with this new environment that they created, where also companies were present, for example. That combination was, to my opinion, pretty unique and quite special, because you can make academic work practical.
That is the relevance and the rigor that Willem-Jan rightly so referred to. And if you would be asked to look in hindsight, so did we deliver on the promise from your perspective?
Yeah, I think you did, or at least JADS did. I think that in the study program, the combination of this new data science theory in combination with the work of companies and actually applying this new techniques on actual data, on actual problems that companies are facing, I think you did your job well. We did quite some projects together with companies that are, for example, present in this campus, but also outside, where we got to work with their struggles, their data struggles, and we had to basically really research, like, okay, how can we turn these struggles around and create opportunities for them to work more with data and to make data-driven choices.
Yeah, that's great. And what would be interesting is to go back to your to the point in time when you was a student with us, and to show the audience what type of compelling projects we did then, and we want to continue with even. So I'm referring to the big what we call PASPOP event and activity. And you were one of the persons present there.
Yeah.
It was a very exciting activity. It was extremely warm at that point in time. I recall it. It was really Awesome. So can you take us along and show us some of the impressions of that time and explain to us what you were doing there?
Mhm. Yeah,
With your team, I mean.
yeah. So first of all, let me explain what PaaSpop is, because
Yes.
I'm not entirely sure whether everybody knows it.
No, please do so.
Well, first of all, PaaSpop is a festival that takes place in the Eastern weekend, and it's
Yep.
a music festival, pop music festival
Yes.
in Schijndel in Noord-Brabant, and it's quite big. It's I think over the whole weekend there are 90,000 visitors or something like
Yep.
that, and as you can imagine, one of the main goals besides creating a party environment for people is to create a safe environment where people feel comfortable to come together with friends and have a good time. And this creating this safe environment, that is where this project where you were talking about contributed, because we were trying to use data to, let's say, improve the crowd control. So
shall we share some?
Yeah, sure.
I know that you have brought a very nice video.
Yeah, so we can directly take a look at
yes
what it looks like.
Please tell us what it is that we are looking at.
Yeah, so as you can see already in the video is that really a lot of people are present at such a festival, and here you see some first footage of us working with data at the festival. So what we were doing basically is using data to analyze crowd behavior and
Yes.
to analyze the behavior of people inside a crowd. Because as you can imagine, when you are at such big events, there will always be people that do not have the best behavior or intentions, let's say.
Yes.
So you can.
And how did you do that? So what did you use? Cameras, drones,
Yeah, exactly.
whatever?
Yeah, so we tried to use video footage.
Yes.
So we we filmed the crowd. So we used drones for that, which fly high over the festival terrain and captured really big chunks of the festival terrain. But we also used smart glasses, for example, to get a more detailed view of the people walking around, where you get a much more detailed insight on how people walk through big crowds, let's say. So one of the things that I learned that weekend was people who pickpocket do not follow the stream of people that walk on a festival terrain. So normally you have, let's say, like 2 streams of people walking, and people who pickpocket zigzag through that crowd.
Right.
And so with video footage, you can try to capture those people
who are zigzagging.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the examples
That's
of
a
the
great
things
insight.
that
Yes.
we were trying to capture there. So as you can see in the video here, we are analyzing the first footage that we filmed that day to basically check whether the quality of the data that we captured was well enough to work with, to analyze. Yeah.
And so it was an extremely exciting environment.
Yeah.
So in terms of your personal education and your personal development, so this combination of being present at such a premises, it's part of life, at least at that point in time, it was part of life. And I learned that this year there will be a new edition. So there is a post-corona PaaSpop edition ramping up. So that's great, and probably we will be there again. So this combination of doing, let's say, inside world activities. Yeah, is there something you would like to show us?
No, I was trying to take a look at where we are in that video, but yeah.
Okay, we can do it alongside. So, what I was aiming at is the answer to the question: is there an added value for you as a person from your professional development perspective of the combination between science, engineering, and education on the one hand side, and being part of these type of projects?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest takeaways is that this project shows how practical data science can be. So how it can be applied to to real life, basically, and how it can help people to, in this case, get a more safe environment, for example.
Yes.
So I can imagine that a lot of people looking at data science and data engineering, thinking of it as complex, abstract things, but this project shows that you can actually apply it in such a way that you can help people for the good. In this way, creating a safe environment where people can party without any fear.
So it obviously contributes, Willem-Jan, and that we could ask you the question, are we still as JADS involved in this type of projects?
Oh, I think so, absolutely. I mean, talking for, let's say, my own group, we these days we have had, for example, some projects like with Naturalis, where we went on field. Again, we were using drones, this time not for crowd management, but simply, I guess, to do counting of flowers, which you might think is very easy, but at the end of the day, is an exceedingly difficult exercise to apply deep learning. Just to give you an example. So we still try to do it. Indeed, also this year we will be involved at Passport, albeit in a little bit different constellation. Likewise, we are continuing to do projects like this, but also at the European level, in fact.
Yeah. Could you give us an idea of what is next on the schedule?
There's so much, I guess, next on the schedule.
Two examples would suffice.
Okay. So I guess one of the projects I was really excited about over the past few months is, and which is something which I have, I guess, mentioned before, but it's a project again on safety and security involving smart objects, smart containers. So where I guess, address the challenge of security, not by looking at fences and trying to safeguard an entire area, an entire perimeter, but look at the individual objects, how we can safeguard those. That's a very interesting one, and it will also involve, I guess, the impact of quantum computer on cybersecurity. Just to give you an idea, that's one of the, I guess, more exciting things that we're doing. But likewise, projects like, for example, how can we better devise more balanced groups of, I guess, male, females, but also of all types of backgrounds, personalities and cultures. So that's again something which is spot on next to some projects that we are initiating, which focus a bit more on sustainability, for example,
excellent.
and blockchain.
Yeah, well, that's an excellent bridge to our next guest. So you mentioned the cultural elements, and it's a great honor and pleasure for us to welcome Gemma Catolino. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, you are Italian,
Yes.
from nature, I should say. It says in my readings that in 2020 you graduated as a PhD from a European program, it is called, and that shows that you are already very, let's say, internationally oriented. It was from the University of Salerno. So what is interesting to know from you is what made you decide to travel to the Netherlands and continue your studies at JADS?
Yeah, okay. I will try to not move my hand, like an Italian. So,
Feel at home.
yeah, well, so yes, it's correct. I did my PhD in Italy, European PhD. European because I spent every year of my PhD in the Netherlands, and in particular at the Delft University of Technology. And after my PhD, that in Italy is 3 years, I decided to move to the Netherlands. So in 2019, after my contract ends in Salerno, I started working as postdoc at UDEFT. And
what made you decide to take that step? Because I can take it that you had a lot of opportunities, but of all places, Delft was the place to go to.
Yes, I mean, I really love the fact to stay in the Netherlands, because during my PhD, I really loved the city. I really enjoyed the atmosphere, the people. So after my PhD, I took the decision to move to the Netherlands.
And you didn't get disappointed. So and at some point in time, you decided to do a postdoc here at JADS.
Yes,
Can you tell us a little bit about the work you did for us?
You know, my first memory at JADS, I really don't have my first memory about my first day, because I started virtually. during the COVID.
Ah, yes, of
Yeah,
course.
in October
Yes.
2020. So, starting virtually is something that don't put, in an easy way, but I mean, I really love to say with my colleagues, with my group, I really, also William Yan, put me in an easy mode, and I start very fast to feel comfortable in a group, even if because I'm a software engineer, so I'm not really a data scientist. I manage with data in my research,
Sure.
but I'm a sort of alien here. But the fact is that I really I think that putting together this mixed topic, it's always a benefit, an additional value, especially in research. So
yeah. And what would you say, again, from your personal and professional perspective, are the true, let's say, unique selling points of JADS? So what makes JADS special or sets the way from other great educational programs, also in the Netherlands, for instance?
Yeah.
So what?
I really love the fact that here there is a real connection with companies.
Okay.
See, I see this added value because also, especially in our unit, we are very active in European project. So from my side, the research that I do is very low level because it's more about improve the quality of the software itself. So it's something that is important, but it's very low level compared to research about society, crime and safety. So it is important, my research, but the fact is that I can apply this low level research with a real company that are interested in my research, and that's for me it's the added value that.
And could you give examples of the companies that you have been working with?
For example, actually, we are collaborating also with Dutch authorities. We are collaborating with Red Hat, that is a company, very big company that works in open source. We are collaborating with Mozilla. So a lots of company that together with JADS, we are trying also to how can I say, to create a connection also together with JADS.
Yeah, great. It also says that you very recently received a special grant from the 4 Dutch technical universities.
Yeah.
It's called the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Grant.
Yeah.
And a lot of words. So what does it mean?
Yes, so actually the 4Q Diversity Equity Fund. So I did this project together in collaboration with TU Eindhoven, TU Delft and Twente University. So this project required that that more Dutch universities are involved in this project.
Yes.
And the goal of our project is to understand how different gender and nationality collaborate in electronical and computer science project. And actually, we are finalizing the results because actually we interview more than 30 students among all these universities. And we are finalizing this result with survey in order to show this result to dean of the Dutch university, because I think that is important to consider different gender diversity, but also different nationality. Since Dutch university have been always international, so we have a lot of international students, and the fact is that it's very important to understand how they collaborate and communicate when doing a project experience for courses.
Does the Netherlands have an issue here? So on the one hand side, we consider ourselves as open. It's in our culture. We always needed, let's say, the neighbors to survive in what way or another. But I guess that you developed some insights from your study, especially the combination between, let's say, the gender differences and technology development.
Yeah.
There was even a recent report from McKinsey that we are not doing very well there. So what is your insight in this respect?
Yeah, I think that we are still far from treat same different gender in the same way, honestly. From a practical point of view, but also from a research point of view, because that is something that also I'm studying my research.
What would be the first part you would change if you, let's say, were the Prime Minister of the Netherlands and this was on your table?
Oh, well, honestly, since I'm, I study computer science, and there's still the problem of female and STEM, subject. I will try to push, starting from elementary education, to push female that can do this STEM, subject.
So kind of awareness programs.
Yes.
That is interesting for female persons to study these subjects.
Yeah.
And in terms of career development, if we, let's say, open that dimension.
Well, I think that it's a little bit complicated because, the fact is that if you want to, apply for a career, I'm 80% sure that the people that will evaluate you will be men. So I think that the first thing that need to be changed is the man mentality.
Yes.
So
yeah,
the consideration that they have
yeah.
about us.
In the Netherlands, we have been aware of this for more than 10 years now, but it seems to be a very hard problem to actually solve. So it's thank you for these insights.
Yeah.
I also know that you have prepared a short presentation for us on your work. So please share it with us.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So before maybe telling you a few details of what I do in my research, I want to first introduce our unit, because as I told you before, I'm an alien, but I think that in our group, I mean, we are all aliens, but I think that our unit is our strength and diversity is our power. Indeed, I mean, this is our task force. You can see very different topics. We have a social system that in particular is my area, but also we have AI computing in the health field, but we have also safe and security, cyber physical system and service, and also AI software computing infrastructure as code. From a research perspective, what I can say to you that our unit is very active in terms of research. Indeed, last year and also already this year, we published more than, I think, 20 papers in A-star conferences and top-rated journals. So we are very active. We are very proud unit to do a lot of research in our area. And actually, as also William told you before, part of our unit is very active also, in doing some real impactful research in the context of European project. And yeah, in particular, we have Radon, Sodalite, Anita, Protect, and other very cool projects. Well, looking more into my research, actually, I usually divided my research in two main areas. So the first main area that is very technical. Indeed, the idea is to exploiting human factor metrics, so metrics related to understanding how developers work for improving and possible mitigating the presence of technical debts that are suboptimal situations that can happen in your source code. Mm-hmm. So this is a very low level research. So for example, improving and detecting possible bugs that can occur in your software. But there is also the research that is high level from an organizational perspective. So the idea to exploit team composition, human factor related to team composition, gender diversity for possible mitigating the presence of suboptimal situation in your team. So if you have, some conflict, have negative communication within your team, there is a possibility that this can affect the quality of the product that you produce. In the context of the first area, so my low-level research, I usually apply machine learning techniques. I extract data in order to construct my knowledge reasoning, and then I apply empirical study research in order to, extract a result and formalize the research methodology. But I really like the second part from organizational factor, and the reason is that I can tell you that the 56% of the project does not fail for technical factors, but for social factors. Indeed, managing the way developers interact with each other can improve the quality of the software itself. So we need to be really careful on how teams interact with each other. Indeed, during the software development, it might happen that some condition create suboptimal situation organization. And this is the clear definition of a community smell. So, it's a smell, but it's a smell of the community.
Yes.
And, that can increase also project costs. And that is why companies are really interested in understanding community smell, because at the end, all this research, the worst consequence is that you increase the cost of your product.
Yes. And also in the digital transformation, very many people believe that the use of platforms and working in ecosystems is very important.
Yeah.
And I think that there you really need to understand the issues that you bring to the table. So it's a great subject. And I guess also this brings us to the point where companies come in.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for your insights, Gemma. And that brings us to the point, ladies and gentlemen, where we really would like to move to our guests, two persons whom we have online. And it gives us great pleasure to have these two persons from ASML. It goes without saying that ASML, let's say, has taken the pole position in the province of North Brabant. For a very long time, it was Philips, but now it's ASML. And then the Philips people always say, well, we gave birth to ASML. That is correct. But the future is on the young companies, and ASML, for that matter, is still a young company. So we have two persons with us. That is Diederik Edel and Ekhtiar Sayed. And ladies and gentlemen, you can already see that Diederik is not living in Brabant at this very point in time. He is in Austria. Ekhtiar decided to stay with us in Brabant. So it's great to have you both online. To start with Ekhtiar, he is a product manager at ASML. And his role in this respect will become later clear in the interview. But let's start with Diederik. So Diederik, you are an alumnus from JADS. So I would like again to start also with you with the question, why did you at some point in time decide to study with JADS?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. It was actually part of my time at KPMG. I was a consultant at KPMG 3 to 4 years ago, and part of the program was that I got the opportunity to study at JADS, the Postmaster Data Science, and I got the opportunity, and I'm very happy that I chose to do the program.
Yes, and what did you do within the program?
Then I have to refresh my memory. Let me go back a couple of years. I was a BI consultant back then, so the world of data analytics or data science is actually way bigger than just descriptive analytics. And the program itself, it consisted of a couple of masterclasses to touch upon all the topics in the data analytics space. which really fit into the general BI knowledge which I had back then. And we had masterclasses on everything, ranging from governance and ethics to deep learning to visualization, which is closer to the nature of a BI consultant, touching upon all the different topics.
Yes, and if we go to your current position and the work that you do at ASML, could you enlighten us a little? So what is the daily affairs that you are professionally engaging in?
Yeah, actually, that's to answer that question. I started off as a BI consultant at KPMG. Then I did the postmasters, and actually the postmaster actually is what triggered me to look in the broader sense to the data analytics workspace. So with all the knowledge from JADS on AI, machine learning, and all the different topics, not just the technical stuff, but also the broader sense. I now work as a product owner within ASML IT specifically, and there I'm responsible for a team of, quickly doing the headcount, 16 or 17 people who work in the data science space. So it's a couple of data scientists, a couple of data engineers, cloud engineers, and we work day to day, every day to solve challenges with the help of data analytics. And I'm very happy that I'm responsible for the entire process, from finding these use cases, finding these topics, these challenges, executing with the team, and growing them throughout the company.
Yeah, thank you very much. And how does XDR fit in this picture?
Yeah, so XDR is actually one of our internal customers. So I'm part of IT, and that means we have an internal customer and customers throughout the company, and XDR is one of our customers.
Yeah, XDR. Let's continue with you. What does it mean for you to be a customer?
Well, as a product manager, our role is to make sure the life cycle of the product, during the life cycle of the product, we stay competitive in the market and we position our product correctly. And to do that, you need to have the right ideas and revolve the product, and position it in the market constantly. And when you take these ideas, you really want to implement them fast and in a very lean way. So having partners like Dietrich's team allows us to do this and experiment very fast, and also without spending too much resource, right? So that's basically what it means. We have an internal partner, so we don't really have to go outside of the company to do it. That means not really a lot of red tapes around what we can and cannot share. We can still talk very openly. At the same time, it is much faster and is designed to work very fast rather than like any other of our product generation processes.
Yep, that's very interesting. If you throw in the notion of customer satisfaction, and that holds for the two of you. So there is, on the one hand side, you, XDR, being the customer. So, and the digital transformation is partly explained from the drive of the customer. So the variation, the customer wants it all, he wants or she wants it now. That's one part of it. And then there is, of course, the delivery part. So that is, well, just maybe it's a blunt question, but how satisfied are you with the service you get from Dietrich?
So from Dietrich, I mean, I speak on behalf of everybody that works with their team. They have absolutely the right mindset in terms of making things available as a service rather than being a bottleneck in the organization and increasing job security. So I really like that approach where they provide things as a service and make things more self-service. And more towards our organization, we want to see that transformation happen. And of course, I'm not really the customer in the sense that I also have a customer to serve. We are just working for the same company. What we want is to, at the end of the day, ship the feature to the customer and solve a problem. So, and we do that very much together.
Mm-hmm. And if you take it from your side, Dietrich, so indeed you are, let's say, more like two persons from the same family with different functionalities and responsibilities. But is it so? How do you get to know, to understand what, let's say, customers like you want in the broad sense, not XDR as a specific example to depersonalize it a little bit. So how do you get hold of what your customers want and need, and what is good for the company in the broader sense?
The answer is actually fairly simple. So the answer to understand your customer is to do two things. That's listen and question. And that's two things we from IT in generally don't do. So we get a challenge, we assume a lot of stuff, we build something from technology, either with our partners, and we throw it over the fence and just assume it works. Well, this is what happened in these old waterfall projects. It doesn't work. Even with Agile, then you're supposed to go closer to your customer, supposed to, but it's a mindset. So what we do, we go to Agile without no technology, just listen. What's your problem? Question, and listen to these answers. And then, even if it doesn't end up at my team, I might relay the question from whatever group there is in to a different team, because it's not important for me to push technology or to push solutions, or there's a lot of people who are stuck in a certain technology and they start pushing technology.
Yeah,
that's not what we do. We listen, and we're lucky that we have the time to listen, to question, and we have the mindset to question. And we try to build something very fast, very small, and just test it. Does it work? Does people enthusiastic?
Yeah, so that's the agile approach
yes.
in brief wording. I recall that some time ago we call that requirements engineering. Is this let's say the requirements engineering of the 21st century, or is it something different?
Yeah, it's I really don't believe in all these different skills, and if you really want to be a good developer, I truly don't believe in having a lot of these labels. We have a lot of labels in ASML, created job profiles because people are not good at one thing and then need help from a consultant, internal consultant. If you truly want to be a good developer, being that Java developer, being that a software data scientist, machine learning engineer, go and sit next to your customer and see whether your solution solves the problem. And whether you want to call it requirements engineering, or it's testing your solution, seeing if it solves the problem, and then go back to the drawing board and doing it fast and iteratively.
Yeah, so it's about skills, I assume.
Yes.
Diederik. And then let's use that as a bridge to look at the education of JADS, at JADS, I mean. So do we spend enough time in developing these skills that are important from the perspective of the two of you? And is there something you could throw at us as an advice?
I am lucky enough to have two ex-JADS students in my team now, and what I generally see is people who are, and these are from the masters, they're very well-rounded students, but in order to become even better, and this is something which in general is very hard for education institutes to do, you need experience to do this well. So you need, in order to become a better problem solver, you need to fail at solving problems and keep on trying. And what I think JADS is doing very well is reaching out to ASML or using the network in order to let her students, so being that PDN trainees or being that Master of Science students, solve real issues at us.
Could you give an example of such a, let's say, real issue, as you call it?
Yeah. So currently working with the PDN program, and we have a very big issue with our contracts. So with our contracts with our suppliers, and we need to identify, because we have a lot of suppliers, as you well know, in the region. I believe it's upwards of hundreds, maybe even thousands. Managing all these contracts is very difficult, so it requires to analyze text, and this is where we now work with a group of PDN trainees to analyze these textual contracts and identify the obligations which result from them. So this is typically something a procurement department, and ours is no different. They don't have a lot of knowledge of technology. So JADS in this case brings both the technology, so the students, they know machine learning in this case, but they also have the ability to question the customer and guide them throughout this process of solving their problem. Yeah,
interesting. And from your perspective, Actia, so as a a product manager, I assume that you have a broader view of, because you are, let's say, responsible for a part of the chain. So if you look at the students that we educate at JADS, do we provide them with the right skills? And is there anything you would give us as an advice to amplify or even open up as a new area?
I think the fact that they get to experience, especially like thesis paper and internship, that really helps. Like if I observe who actually ends up doing quite well at later part of their career, those who typically stay purely at the university for doing a thesis, they tend to do a little bit, they tend to take a little longer time to integrate. And those who actually have done an internship, they do better. So I would say continue doing what you're doing and keep facilitating those internships to make them just have a little bit of an edge in terms of what it means to work in a fast-paced environment.
Yes. Yeah, that's interesting. And in terms of retention, Ekhtiar, is it easy for you to, let's say, hold on to our people?
So far, the retention rate is not bad. Well, to start with, we have 40 days holidays. So I think when you give 40 days holidays, you can keep your people quite well. But moreover, also people fall in love with the problem we have, which really is at a nanometer level, right?
Yes.
They get to work with technologies that not really you can do actually anywhere else in Europe. If you really want to work in semiconductor industry, there is a couple of sites opening up now up in Dublin, but typically you really have to go either Korea, Japan, China, or US. So people really fall in love with the problem, fall in love with lithography, the machine itself. And that is really a driving factor for them to try a lot of things within the company. So I do see that people don't really stay in the same role in the company so long, but they do move around, but stay.
Yeah, and that is exactly what I think you want within the company, because the, let's say, the dynamics is very important to educate people from the problems that you have to solve from different perspectives, I assume. So that's great to hear. So thank you very much for being with us. So Diederik, enjoy staying and skiing in Austria and take care. And Ekhtiar, thank you also for being with us, and lots of success as a product manager, because your success is the success of ASML, and ASML is the success of Brabant. So thank you for being with us.
You're very welcome.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the last guest that we have invited to the table, and that's Parvati Krishnan. Are you with us, Parvati? Yes, I can see you. Hello.
Hello.
Parvati, you are a PDN alumni, as we call it. So some people also call it an alumnus to make it gender neutral. What's your perspective with respect to these gender issues that we discussed with Gemma?
So I work now in public sector, let's say, where the gender equality is a huge topic. And because of that, there are a lot of conscious efforts to make it gender neutral, or even the problems, we always make sure that there are no gender biases. And at JADS, my personal experience, at least with the PDing program, there was like a lot of women PDing trainees. But in my batch, I was the only one. But in our previous generations, because we were a very small batch, so it was only 6 of us. But in our previous batch and in the batch that actually joined after us, there were like a lot of PDing trainees who were women. So in PDing specifically program, I didn't find any problem because I was a woman. But once you get into the public sector and you really see that the impact of this problem and the amount of issues that surrounds it, so I would say that it is a big issue. Even in Europe, it is, when I was in India, I used to think that in India, it is a huge issue and everywhere else it is not. But then I started integrating here and I started finding that it is an issue everywhere.
Yep. And you work for the World Bank for one. And You do that as a data scientist. So could you tell us a little bit how this combination is compelling and appealing to you as a person, Parvati?
I'm a freelance consultant, let's say. So for the past 2.5 years, I have been involved as a consultant with World Bank and also with for the past 1 year with United Nations. So for me, these organizations actually give me the opportunity to apply data science to real life challenges that people are facing around the world. So be it poverty reduction, be it gender equality, be it climate change. So both World Bank and United Nations work on topics related to what we call the Sustainable Development Goals.
Yes.
So there are 17 goals, and that's a framework around which we all do projects. And of course, these goals are not standalone. They are always related to each other. So I've had the opportunity to work as a data scientist at these organizations, and I find it extremely extremely grateful for that opportunity, first of all, because it's not very easy to find such jobs which gives you a purpose in life.
Yeah, it's really exciting, Parvati. So we also at JADS are diving into this topic, and we often call it data science and artificial intelligence for the social good. There is a worldwide development on this. We have now, since 3 or 4 years, even conferences and summits that run under that name and notion. There was again a report from McKinsey that's really compelling. It studied the 17 SDGs, and as you know, there are 169 targets underlying, and they looked at each of these targets and the contribution of artificial intelligence and data science, either in terms of stimulating it or inhibiting it. Is that something that you recognize also from your perspective? So let's say the positive and the negative side from data science and artificial intelligence to these 17 SDGs?
Definitely. So there are a lot of opportunities, let's say in monitoring and evaluation, in making sure that the progress towards SDGs is actually going in the right way that we want. But there are also problems like, for example, fake information or misinformation, which is actually a huge menace, especially during times such as COVID and others, when people are already struggling a lot with other issues, and then comes the propaganda or other, it could be for other reasons, like people using fake videos to actually give misinformation to people. So it is really like a big issue on one hand, but at the same time, we can always, because even in our PDing program, we were actually given a lot of lectures on ethics, on privacy, because usually in the development sector, we deal sometimes with like personal data. So actually data regarding personal information. So how to handle it in a way that it is not causing any harm. So do no harm is the first principle that you have to follow whenever you use data. And it's also very important to understand the biases. So if I want to do any analysis, let's say for Netherlands or for US, there is a lot of data available. It is very easy to find things. But suppose if I go to a developing country context and I want to do some analysis, even the simple analysis may be very difficult because the right amount of data is not available. And when it is available, it is, let's say, for the whole country or for the whole district. It is not available at a granular level that you are actually able to do some decision making. So these are some of the issues that we need to be aware of as data scientists working in the public sector. But let's say when we are working in a company where we get access to a lot of company data, you have a lot of tools, techniques, you do not really understand the difficulties of actually solving these AI or machine learning for social good related data. And in many cases, it's not really big data. It is in many cases small data. And I think William Jan mentioned about this plumbing problem, let's say.
Yes.
How do you bring all these different data sets together is usually the biggest challenge in the public sector, more than like applying algorithms and all. Of course, those are also challenging, but the first thing is, how do you bring all these different pieces of data or information together to make decisions or also policies?
If you look at your organization, the World Bank, for a minute, Parvati, how is the leadership within your organization stimulating this type of development?
I am actually very fortunate to work in a team who is very much positive towards these kind of work. And I am, let's say, a consultant, so I am not a World Bank employee, but there are people within the organization who are very much open to new ideas, very much open to having this digital components in the project. And at the same time, there are, let's say, projects that are totally like about digital disruption. And there are also a set of projects which are about building the digital ecosystem in a country. So it's not always about implementing the AI or machine learning models, but you also need to have that startup mentality, startup ecosystem within the countries to actually implement and support these innovations that are coming up. So,
could you give an sorry to interrupt. Could you give an example of such an innovation, Parvati? So where data science is helping in the process of making the right decisions, or at least conscious decisions on, let's say, spending of let's say, funds to stimulate it. Is there something you could share with us?
Definitely. So with Professor Dick Den Hertog, one of the professors, he is currently at Amsterdam Business School. One of the projects that we did is on optimizing or like doing some optimization models for pinpointing where new infrastructure decisions have to be made. For example, where should new hospitals come up or where should new schools come up? Looking at the existing infrastructure, population distribution, the road network data, the climate risk, resilience, etc. So we actually jointly developed some optimization models to pinpoint where new facilities have to be constructed or where a new extension of services is required. So that is one solid project that I can share with you. So it's called the Geospatial Planning and Budgeting Platform.
That's very interesting. Maybe to close up, Willem-Jan, because you are part of the leadership of JADS, and Parvati is one of the persons that we educated, and she's now in this really exciting domain of data science for the social good. So what is your opinion about this as a subject for the future of JADS?
Oh, there's no doubt it is an extremely important subject, I guess, both in education, in research, but also, in fact, in entrepreneurship. Be it when I look around at this place at JADS, but also other places in Netherlands or in Europe, I see more and more young, fresh graduates very much interested in not only, I guess, getting rich very quickly, which was my generation, I guess, in the 80s and 90s, but much more on how I can improve society. So I see this as something of the past few years, but also from a research perspective. And we have been working before also with Parvati. She has been part of our team, in fact. And we will continue to work with her also at the level of the United Nations, for example, and possibly also in other, I guess, constellations. So, for example, in the area of these geographical, I guess, positioning, challenges, the dashboarding, I guess also with the data integration, and doing it in such a way that it is not only available by, I guess, quote unquote, the rich countries, but also by all types of other, I guess, regions in this world. This is a very, I guess, challenging issue, both technically and a rewarding one at the same time for the people around and also in the team.
Yeah, and we do have this Generation Z that you rightly refer to, who is really motivated by improving the world as it is, blaming us a little for the fact that we brought it where it is. But suppose we would turn this into, let's say, a unique selling point for JADS. So maybe to drill it even down to very practical figure of merit, like what would it take to increase the number of students in the influx by 50% based on these views? So improving the world by data science and artificial intelligence. Parvati, what would be your recommendation to Willem-Jan? And then we can tell Willem-Jan to act on it.
Honestly, I think JADS is already doing a lot in this space, because be it with PDing program or master's program, you are working, because I myself was involved in some of the master thesis projects, like with the WWF, like the deforestation project or others. So there are a lot of programs already at JADS building these networks who are actually working for social good. And thankfully, Netherlands have a lot of such organizations, like the 510 of the Red Cross, for example. So I would say that when I was in PDing, a lot of my projects were with companies. So because of that, my exposure was also, because I had some public sector experience before, it was good for me to work with companies. But if I'm a PDing student who is only working with companies, maybe I do not have that much exposure to public sector problems and opportunities also in public sector. So maybe during master's thesis or during PDing projects, having collaborations with these organizations at that stage really helps, because it's two-way. So the company also,
Yes.
or the organization gets to know how JADS is operating. At the same time, students get a lot of exposure to the real problems and how they can contribute. And it is very motivating to work for these kind of organizations.
Yes, we know that. So maybe to complete the story, Willem-Jan, again, you are one of the persons in the leadership. You are motivated by this subject. We have these examples of you. So there is a touch base, there is evidence. What is going to drive you in the forthcoming years to make this work again? So in terms of increasing the activities that we have, so where would you place your bet?
Yeah, I guess if I would take the three, I guess, logical dimensions of JADS with respect to the education.
Yes.
I think we are doing already a lot, or like rightfully said, but maybe sometimes we are not that visible yet, and we could maybe be a little bit more visible, but also by connecting and reaching out even stronger to some other parties like United Nations, World Bank, and I guess also to formalize these collaborations and to make them sustainable in the longer run. So this could be, in my opinion, a good route. With respect to research, I already tried to lay out some plans. Definitely also they will again involve the more classical topics that we have described. But I'm placing my bets personally on the next generation of computing facilities, in particular the quantum side, and how that will impact the way in which also machine learning, data science will be conducted. So for me, that is exceedingly interesting and also rewarding area. Indeed, with respect to the entrepreneurship side, the social entrepreneur angle, I think has increasingly been a very interesting and relevant one. It might grow also in the future, but that's very hard to tell. That's really looking into, I guess, the crystal ball and figuring out where it will head. But for sure, it's something that I've seen drives, let's say, the younger colleagues like Gemma. And this is what I'm looking for. We are always looking for, I guess, knowing you a little bit, is at the end of the day, we're in this profession also for the drive of the young people and to help them to further, I guess, develop themselves in their careers and to do it in a responsible way.
Yeah, stay attractive by doing the right things. Yeah. We do cool stuff with data, is our slogan. So ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of this special edition of the Expert Talks. So thank you guests for being with us. And of course, that holds especially for Willem-Jan, but also the great people and persons that he brought along. So Diederik and Ektiar and Parvati and Lennart and Gemma. It was really exciting and stimulating to talk to you. So please be our ambassadors for the future to come. And we hope to build a strong connection with you and the relationship for the next lustrum, because we are here to stay. Thank you very much and have a nice evening.